Which, by the way, I don't know if you know my connection to the Titanic movie. Do you?
I don't, no.
Okay, so, I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's just that I was one of the first in the country to see this movie. And I'll tell you why.
In Indonesia?
No, here, man.
It was like 7 years after it came out.
Yeah, no. No, I was in high school, already living here, and I worked at a movie theater. Now, I worked at the concession stand, which, wasn't too bad, except for cleaning out the butter pumps at the end of the night was disgusting.
The butter pumps.
And also one time I ate a hot dog there, and this guy dared me to smoke a Marlboro Red right after I'd eaten. And so, I was like, okay. And he was just like, I bet you can't smoke this fast enough. Or I don't know what it was. Yeah. And I tried it or whatever, and I threw up everywhere, and it was disgusting. But anyway, one of the cool things about working at a movie theater, at least back then, I have no idea if that's the case now, you could see premiere movies the night before they played for free. You would just stay after closing, and the management would kind of let all of the employees that wanted to.
What an exciting sort of atmosphere I bet that was.
Super exciting. I had zero idea. I just knew, it's Titanic. This girl that I had a kind of a crush on at the time said, hey, it's got Leonardo DiCaprio. It's supposed to be awesome. Sure, I'll stay after. Now, in my mind, so we closed at like 10 or something. In my mind, this movie's only going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours. 3.5 hours later, whatever it is, I'm like, holy cow, man. My dad was like, this is before cell phones, all that stuff. My mom and dad were like worried sick, man, because I didn't get home until like, I don't even know, 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my connection. I saw it before you did. So there you go.
Okay. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, man, that was really cool. I'd never heard of it.
What a weird thing.
Yeah, no. And I got to say, man, it's kind of something that I would, like, it gives me good ideas. I love sprinkling in that kind of,
yeah, right.
Somewhat obscure, because, I mean, just as an example, the typical audience that watched that movie at that time, me, for example, zero idea. And especially when it came out, it's not like I was Googling Lake Winnipesaukee or whatever it's called, or the Navy Pier or whatever you said. Santa Monica Boulevard. Then, so he could have gotten away with it for some time. And since he probably has access to a portal, he probably just knew that the internet was going to be a lot stronger in the future, and knew that at some point we'd be able to kind of call the bluff or whatever. But
and also it's the idea that, like, if we're looking at sort of the John Teeter aspect of time travel, it's like, okay, poof, he appears in our time, steals some clothes or whatever, just like,
all of them.
I know, but what's his the original Schwarzenegger one called? The T900?
Oh, man. No, it's like a T100, I think.
Is that right?
Oh, man, why do you have to do this, though?
It doesn't matter. Anyway, he steals some clothes. He knows that, like, okay, well, this is happening. He jumps in a random poker game, wins it, then he dies on a door or raft or whatever, and
Cyberdyne Systems Model 101.
Oh, okay, cool. So then he dies in this time, but he's completed his mission, and then he's right back into his regular time.
Now, I didn't want to open up a whole nother can of worms here, but is that?
I mean, are we recording this? Is this like?
Is that? Hold on just a second. Is that what happens to John Teeter? I don't know that if you die in one timeline, you're. Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah,
but like, is there ever a moment where your consciousness kind of like melds with?
Well, yes, and that's called deja vu.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Quick question: have you watched Wayward Pines?
Man, I told you about that show like 50
No, I know
years
that.
ago.
I've known about it a long time ago too. I'm asking you if you've watched it.
We watched the first...
So much for 50 years ago.
We watched the first season because there was a new season, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that we've seen... I don't think we ever saw the second season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious because I think I'm trying to like watch everything that the Duffer Brothers have worked on, and that's one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty great show. It kind of gets a little weird. Maybe we did start the second season and
Just didn't really care for it.
Well, I don't know. I could be thinking of something different. But yeah, maybe the sort of the second season kind of pivots and like changes completely. And we were sort of like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not. That's cool though that they worked on that.
Yep. And they also did like a movie that came out in 2015, limited release. Oh man, I forget what it's called. But it's got like Alexander Skarsgård and somebody else that looks pretty cool. I think it's like, I mean, I don't even think it went to DVD. So they were pretty bummed about that. And they wrote it. So that's like the first thing that they wrote.
And it was like a show, you're saying?
No, it was a movie. And it got kind of like limited release and they were bummed. And then M. Night Shyamalan hired them to help with Wayward Pines. And I don't know, what capacity or whatever. But
to me, that show felt a lot like, what's that Stephen King story? It's like Under the Dome or something. It kind of gets, I don't know how far you are, but.
No, I haven't started it.
Oh, okay. Well, once you get into it, I think you'll probably pick up on that too.
Cool.
It's very important to them that they stay in touch with their fans.
They're just like us.
They just enjoy being themselves.
You have found
The Rabbit Trail. Can I tell you real quick this crazy story that Ann shared with me, man?
Oh, I love it.
Okay. And I hate using this term, dude, because it's just annoying and whatever, but there's a influencer that she follows. It's actually a husband and wife team, and I don't want to say who it is because even though the wife kind of sent out this full story and letter to their followers, they didn't make a huge post about it on their Instagram. And so I think for some, and maybe it'll become more clear later as we get into the story, she kind of wanted to kind of not make it a huge deal. So they are a husband and wife team that does like remodeling and, home decor type stuff. I mean, they've got like brands in big box stores and stuff, and they're really, really cool. Anyway.
We're talking about Chip Gaines?
No, but that's probably what people will think. So like about, I don't know, man, over the last like couple of years, the wife had gone to their Instagram and was just kind of like talking about in her Instagram stories, like, look, there's some really weird stuff happening in our house. I honestly don't want to like get into it because I'm so frightened by it that I don't even want to, talk about it out loud. We're trying to kind of revamp this home and then move, basically. Well, fast forward, and I remember Ann kind of being like, look, I don't know what this lady's talking about. It's kind of weird. She's pretty vague about it, but she seems like this is not
for her to post about it.
Yeah,
it's got to be something. Yeah.
So about a year and a half like just goes by, man, and we never hear anything about it. And then Ann gets this email, literally dated like October 18th of this year. So just a couple of weeks ago. And I thought about like having this as one of the stories that we kind of told during our finale, but then it just didn't work out. So I kind of wanted to like save it up for our best friends over here on our Patreon and just kind of, I guess, dive into it because even though Halloween's over, I kind of want to let it get a little creepy again real quick. And this dude kind of falls right in line with some of the stories that we did tell. And the fact that this is not a person who, look, they're not trying to get a ghost hunting TV show.
Right.
They're not trying to be, in fact, it other than her sending this to the people on her mailing list, because she felt compelled to do so since she brought up something, previously, they've kept it pretty private. So I'm just going to literally read the letter word for word. Okay? All right, here we go. This is in her voice, but I'm not going to make my voice sound like a girl. I'm just going to read it as if I'm her, okay? Take it easy. All right.
Take it easy.
Our last house wasn't incredibly old, just a little over 30 years. But when we moved in, it had a feeling to it that I couldn't shake. Being religious, my husband blessed the home as soon as we moved in. But we all felt something wasn't right. Some things were less tangible. For example, as soon as you passed the threshold into the hall leading back to our daughter's room, we all got the feeling that someone was watching us. That you should hurry up and get to wherever you were going because someone was following you.
It's like that. I don't mean to interrupt, but it's like that feeling as a kid when you're like in the dark running up the stairs.
Oh, dude.
And you just be like,
Yeah, man. That's exactly. That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so this feeling extended into my daughter's room. Early on, I was sitting on her bed when she still had this crazy red carpet and the girls were laying next to me. I was looking into the daughter's bathroom thinking about what color to paint it, and my other daughter, who was 5 at the time, grabbed my face and looked into my eyes and said, Mom, who are you looking at? What do you mean? I said. Are you looking at someone in there, Mom? There was no one in the bathroom, but that was the first time I knew that she felt something or someone. The faucet would turn on randomly in there, and we couldn't explain it. We just kept turning it off over and over and over. Our bathroom had that feeling too. Before we renovated it, I'd get chills just doing my makeup. And in the middle of the night, we'd wake up and the shower light would be on. At first, I thought my husband left the light on, so I'd get up and turn it off, and then get back in bed. And then a couple hours later, the light would be on again. My husband thought the exact same thing. He thought I was the one leaving the light on. Until one night we were both in bed, in the dark, talking, and the light in the shower turned on. We squeezed each other's hand, and I got really scared knowing that neither of us did that.
Wow.
It wasn't every night, but so many nights in the first 6 or 7 months living in that house. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with the shower light on, and I'd clench my eyes shut even tighter. In the early days of our bedroom, there was this tray ceiling with LED lights above it, but they never once worked. My mom was over helping me rearrange our bedroom, and then all of a sudden, all of the lights in the bedroom turned off, and those LED lights in the tray ceiling turned on. I remember laughing nervously, and she said, "Well, that's different." A second later, sorry, dude, what a thing for a mom to say, "Well, that's different." She was definitely just, there was some judgment in that.
Yeah.
A second later, the lights turned back on. And here's the clincher, dude. When she says this, check this out. We could never get those LEDs to work again. Now, I'm going to jump out of character, so to speak, real quick to say this. When I read, or when Anne read this part, because she actually told me about it while we were, I think, driving either to or from Disney, and I just had to read it out loud. When she read that part, I was like, think about something here. These are folks that literally renovate homes for a living.
Yeah, right.
Now, if some crazy thing happened at my house in terms of a light fixture just stopped working, I can't get it to work, I replace that bulb, nothing works, I'm out of my element. I'm calling an electrician.
Right.
Right? These folks don't need to do that because this is what they do for a living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was just an interesting detail to me that they were never, ever able to get these dadgum LEDs to work again.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into the letter.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
This is Amy Poehler. My new movie, Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, is coming to theaters June 14th, and it's making me feel joy and sadness and anger, definitely some disgust, Rose, and I think a little fear. But I'm also feeling these new emotions like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui.
It's what you call the boredom.
Okay, that one was weird. It's gonna be the feel everything movie of the summer. Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
America's future can be determined by our dreams and our visions.
It was very intense, bright light.
For over 200 years, there have been reports of giant man-like creatures.
From another dimension, another world, I don't know.
The most intriguing mystery on the North American continent.
Hey, this is Bryce Johnson from the Bigfoot Collectors Club, and you're listening to Tyler and Woody on That Would Be Rad, because that is rad.
Something similar happened to our nephew, who lived in the basement guest room for a while. He often said that he felt the room had a presence to it, even without knowing all of the things that we had been experiencing. Once he said he was home alone and the power went out in the whole house, except for a single lamp in the guest room that was turned on. After he told us what had happened, we shared with him for the first time some of the other things that we were witnessing. The lights, the water turning on, my daughter seeing a little girl in my other daughter's bathroom. Sometimes also the daughter reported that little girl would also, quote, sleep in her room too. My sister Victoria also stayed in that guest room. She reported hearing the shower turn on in the guest bath. Who's getting ready downstairs so early this morning, she thought. It all came to a head one night, about 7 months after moving in. I had woken up in the middle of the night to see the shower light on, of course. Frustrated, I got up to turn it off and jumped back in bed. I felt something crawl in behind me.
Oh, boy.
There was a weight behind me that I can't describe. I grabbed my husband's hand, but couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My frozen state lasted for almost an hour. What? And I broke down afterwards. I yelled at the top of my lungs, I can't live here anymore. I can't do this. No one was hurt. Nothing felt evil, per se. But we most certainly felt like we were living amongst others anytime we walked down the hall or even went to bed or went down into the basement. It became heavy and tiresome on us. My friend said she knew a couple girls that had spiritual gifts, mediums that could come to our home. I wasn't sure.
Wait, real quick. Are you saying that, like, the thing that crawled into the bed
felt like a person, dude?
But when she
laying behind her,
reached back to grab the hand?
No, she grabbed her husband's hand just like because she was so scared. So in other words, like, just imagine like a couple, they're laying in bed and she gets up, turns off the light, comes back and lays in bed. When she does, she feels something come in behind her and lay down as if it was another person. So she reaches over to her husband.
Who's in front of her.
Yeah, in front of her, we'll say.
Right.
Asleep, grabs his hand, but is just so terrified and trembling and stuff. She can't say anything. An hour passes. She felt like that presence there. So her friends say, hey, we've got some folks that we know that have, either they have spiritual gifts or they're mediums and they can come to the home. Jumping back into the letter.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure what I believed, but at this point I was willing to try anything. I didn't tell them anything when they arrived, just that we had experienced things and felt tired. 2 women walked around the whole house and stopped in all of the places where lights and faucets had turned on, telling us that spirits were felt, even in some places that we hadn't. They described specific spirits in their stories. As they walked down the hall to my daughter's room, they paused and said, "There's an open portal here." They were at our house for over an hour, talking and moving slowly, and I stood quietly observing. After they left, our home immediately felt lighter. All of the energy was just gone. We had no more lights turning on or off. The faucets never turned on once again on their own. My daughter started sleeping more soundly, and we went on to live there another 1.5 years with no more unexplained events. Thinking back, it feels quite traumatic, which is why I didn't want to talk about it before. And I was partially worried that talking about it would somehow make it happen again. But we haven't had any feelings in that house or our new house at all since. And for that, I am so grateful. Still, sometimes I go places and I immediately feel a familiar heaviness and chill that I recognize instantly. It's a feeling I'll never forget. Isn't that wild?
That's amazing, dude.
Whew. I mean, that's, you never know where you're going to find interesting occurrences like that, man. In this case, it came from, this husband and wife team that renovate houses that my wife follows, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I think we've said this before. It's like, again, even somebody like me who's been into this as far back as I can remember, like, there's a real line in the sand between being like into this stuff and like, okay, well, let's maybe like let's go to this house and like check it out and da da da. But once it like crosses that line and has to do with your house and your family, it's just like a whole other thing,
right?
And that's pretty scary. And
like that part at the end, like you said, like of her saying like, this is the reason why I didn't bring it up. And it's one of those things too, like, I think I follow these folks now, but they didn't owe anybody an explanation, which again, this kind of, and we talk about this on the show a good bit, like people admitting to these experiences is a real kind of hard thing because immediately, what are people going to think? They're going to think what they've always thought throughout history. Hey, this person's crazy, Right. And her sort of describing it or, kind of coming out with this story, potentially puts her business in jeopardy,
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Anytime that kind of happens, it's sort of, now, what do I believe is really going on there? Not sure. But I definitely believe that they experienced all those things.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're looking at it, skeptically, it's one of those things where it's like, well, maybe they didn't see or experience these things, but they believed that they fully were.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really creepy.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had really anything like that kind of happen to me. I just don't know what I would do, man. I think mentally I would deny it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the way that I would wrap my head around it. I think it wouldn't be like, oh, it's some sort of supernatural thing. My thing is if I heard a noise in the house, I'm like, all right, man, this is what you've been training for. All those ninja classes and all the martial art. This is it. Get those throwing stars ready. You know what I mean?
I mean, I can say from, I think back on our first Halloween episode, where I told that story about, my dad used to live in this house. And, I always like, it's interesting to hear this because there's a lot of like sort of similarities that sort of resonate with me is like, I never liked the room, my like bedroom or whatever. It was at the end of this long hallway. You know, it was this sort of plantation type house, and it always just like freaked me out. And I always felt like I was sort of being watched or whatever. But you know, then I actually had an experience where I saw this sort of shadow person. Yeah. I heard the knob turn on this old, like, you know, old wooden door, giant door, you know, the metal knob, like clink, 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 sort of turn. I see sort of out of my periphery, I see the door open, then I see somebody sort of walk across the room and then stand at the foot of my bed. And I mean, it is super terrifying to the point where I didn't even go back to my dad's for, I would say, almost like a full year. I would always sort of make up excuses or, you know, whatever. But yeah, there's something that's like really scary about it being like in your house. That's just like another kind of level, you know.
And speaking of just another level, last night, Jane is like, "Mommy," from her room. And we're like, what in the world? She's in there. She's terrified. She's crying because a fly landed on her knee. This is what I'm dealing with. Okay?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I have, you know, I've talked to you about it, but, you know, my daughters and stuff, but I don't even like to talk about those.
No. It's like acknowledging it makes it real.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's kind of like the skits. I mean, I said it at my, on our show when Jane was like, you know, little. Well, there was a couple things that were just weird. Like both kids lived in that room, you know, at different points when it was like our baby room because it's the closest to our master bedroom. And they both focused on the same spot in the room. Walls are white, bro. There's no marks. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Scary. And then one time when we went in there and I'm like, Jane, what's the problem? She was like, 3. And she's like, it's the skits. I'm like, what? Didn't sleep the rest of the night. It was awful. I was looking up, what is the skits?
Yeah, that is so scary.
Man.
Yeah. Speaking of old houses, I finally watched the Watcher show.
Oh, did you?
Have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't watched it, man. After seeing the trailer and just being like, man, we did it way better. I just hadn't been interested. So,
I mean, I gotta say, like, well,
should I watch it?
Yeah. I think you should watch it.
I've heard mixed reviews, you know?
Well, it's weird because, you know, as like someone that we have covered the topic, so we kind of knew all the ins and outs of it. I mean, boy, they take a lot of liberties. To the point where, like, the one thing I guess I'll say that I didn't love about it, but then at the same time, I don't totally know of another way that they could have done it, you know, for the folks that like didn't really know this original story, is like they kind of tied up a lot of loose ends that I didn't really love. Like, you know what I mean? It's like in real life we have no idea who this person is. But then in the show, it like
they kind of make some theories and make it seem like that's what's going on.
No, I mean, they fully kind of give you a
this is who did it.
This is kind of
Well, now I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the acting's good. I did feel like I felt like some of the facts are a little. Were a little.
I mean, sometimes that stuff happens just because, you know, it's more smooth whenever it's a TV show to tell the story that way or change this or change that.
But some of it felt a little like. I mean, you'll see what I mean. It almost felt in places like, man, you should have just
used ours.
Well, not just used ours, but I mean, you should have just used the original story because like that's even creepier, or that's even, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really curious to see how you think, you know, what you think of it at the end. But I will say, I think the acting is amazing. Like, man, there's some characters in that show that like they do such a great job of like making you just hate them.
Oh man, yeah.
In like a good way.
Like Joffrey or
right,
you know, whatever.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I guess that whole topic is still completely unanswered, right?
You mean
as far
who
as
the Watcher was?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody has like come out since the show.
No.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, that story specifically is, I'm going to say a lot different than a lot of the ones that we hear because in the end, now, I can't verify what I'm about to say here, but it certainly seems like there would need to be some sort of money, like exchanging hands here. Mm-hmm. Most of the stories, like the people telling them, actually, their lives kind of get upended, and they don't get any sort of monetary benefit out of it necessarily.
Oh,
in this case, now you got a Netflix series. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they portray in the show, but if I remember, one of the theories was that it was the husband himself or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's the case, boy, did they get a little cash day.
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember, like these guys, they went through absolute hell.
I know. But I mean, only for like a year, right? I mean, like that's the thing.
No. This was like years before. I don't
remember.
I think it was like 4 years. Let
me just ask you this question then. This is an important one. If I told you, hey man, for 4 years, you're going to think your house is. You're going to think.
Who's going to be like, all I got to do is wait out 4 years.
4 years, and then I'm a freaking multi-millionaire.
No, I know that I'm going to be approached by Netflix.
No, but I mean, it's a compelling story. I mean,
yeah, but I don't think. I mean, it's one thing if you.
I mean, dude, trust me, I'm with you. I think it was just like a weirdo that was mad that these folks moved in, and then I don't know, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that like there was nothing that was ever like set in stone of like, okay, if you do this, then you're gonna get this. But then at the same time, like on the flip side of that, they basically put every bit of their savings, every bit of everything into this house, and then all this stuff started happening, and then basically they're living out of a hotel, and the dude's like life is falling apart, and
yeah, no, that sucks.
And then nobody will buy the house because which they do this thing,
but then it sells, and then they
well, I don't think it sold. I think they were renting it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's sold now though, right?
I don't think so. The last thing that I looked at,
they're going to open it up for tours, dude. I'm telling you. Cash cow, man.
It's cool though. Like, I mean, the show is pretty cool. It's cool just because, like, I love that story.
Well, and it's also cool to see like something that we've done
right
as a show topic that didn't have a show, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, holy smokes, man, we get to see it. Like things that we were describing and all that, I get to like actually see it.
Yeah. And like Naomi Watts was great, and I never can think of the guy's name, but
yeah, that guy's great. It's funny. I used to hate that guy, and
really,
yes, because of his. I think he plays Al Capone in what was the HBO? Boardwalk Empire, and I hated him, dude, in that show, man. I hated him so much that like I would always just talk trash about him. Apparently, he's like really kind of funny in real life too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
and would always be like, man, this guy's hilarious. And I'm like, I freaking hate that guy. And then slowly but surely, he'd be in these roles where you're like, okay, I kind of like him. Okay, I kind of like him. A little trivia here for Star Wars nerds and nerds of film. His son played in a Mandalorian episode. His son was the guy that kind of like double crosses him. And then that's the reason why Baby Yoda was kind of like taken, and then he has to like go after him or whatever. That young bounty hunter, that's his son in real life.
Oh, that's cool.
Right?
He was eventually shot by like the Asian bounty hunter?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, spoiler, sorry.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. I didn't know that at all.
Cool trivia.
Yeah, I thought when you said that the Al Capone thing, he was was he in The Irishman? Or something?
He's been in a lot of movies, man. Okay.
But he played like he always plays like not always bad, but like the politician, like the sort of sneaky kind of. But he's great. He's really good in the movie. And I think the one thing I think it does brilliantly is it really like it really like conveys that feeling of like, okay, we have a new house. We busted our butts to like get here and do all this. And then like you have these like weird neighbors who are just like annoying. So you can totally relate and be like, I would be losing my mind if these people.
Well, it's just also scary. You like, how do you, and we talked about this on that episode, man, like how do you fight back when it's somebody that you don't know? You don't know where this is coming from. You don't know how to like catch them.
Right.
Nobody's helping you in terms of, well, like what can you, it's kind of like, what do you tell law enforcement? You know?
Well, the show,
hey,
like,
man, there's somebody sending me letters. Cool.
Well, the show like really gets into that side of it.
Just tell me no more, dude.
I'm not. The only thing I'm going to say is like I'm not giving anything away, I promise. The only disappointment is they never said the line. You know how it said the line of like, my grandfather took care of this in the 20s. My father took care of this in the 60s. Now it's like my time or whatever.
Yeah.
It never went into that part, which I found kind of interesting. It was like, that's such a weird kind of not esoteric, but like sort of like,
it's an interesting detail that kind of like, maybe it's because, and I'll have to tell you after I watch the whole thing, maybe it's because they want the audience to kind of lean in a direction in terms of who they think is the person. And so that kind of distracts from it. Because I remember when we were kind of reviewing it, it's kind of like, man, I don't know. It could have been all of these people.
Oh, yeah, dude.
If it was a Jeopardy question, we would have said, who is all of them? You know?
Yeah.
Man, I know this is such a tangent, dude, but speaking of Jeopardy, we were watching the Celebrity Jeopardy. And the other night, Will Wheaton, who everyone would potentially remember him from Stand By Me, he's kind of like the skinny kid, but also in the 90s, he was the young kid on Star Trek Next Generation. And I'm trying to think what else he was in. He was in Toy Soldiers. But anyhow, I found this, anyway, he was on, he's also probably one of my favorite audiobook narrators. He narrates Ready Player One and that series, among others. So anyway, this small piece of trivia, I was like, what else has he been in? Well, I found this horror movie that I had actually never heard of and or seen called, hold on just a second, The Curse. Came out in 1987. Never heard of it. And I got it on VHS. It's on its way.
Cool.
Because I was like, man, I'd never heard of this. And it looks cool. Like the front cover sort of copy, it says, it takes your body and your mind. Then it takes you straight to hell.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, man.
That's classic.
Anyway, man, I got to go.
Yeah, dude. Good night.
Guess you win.